Welcome to the analysis of the CEI 5 colors lock. Disclaimer. Before continuing to watch this video, please read the disclaimer carefully. The CEI 5 colors lock is made and produced in China. It's a very decent, high-quality lock and it offers a lot of interesting security and convenience features. The container that contains the lock is made out of metal and is round, and if you open the container it contains a little cardboard box, and this is a picture of the cardboard box. In the box is one cylinder and 5 keys, and if we look at the keyway, if we look at the face of the lock, we see a lock that has that shows a lot of resemblance with Multilock, the Multilock Classic and Interactive. And if we look at the keys and if we look at the lock, we also see some resemblance with the Multilock product, but we can also see that it's not exactly a multi-lock. The box also contains a key duplication card. This card is necessary for you to be able to make duplicates of your keys. If we open the lock up, we see that there's a lot of pins and a lot of technology involved in the lock. On this tile shot I will show you the parts and tell you what they are for. We start with the plug. You see it at the bottom of the screen. The plug has 5 holes for the pin-in-pin mechanism, and it contains also 1 hole for the special rotational pin. There are also 4 little holes drilled on both sides of the plug. You see here the 4 holes drilled on the right side, and here the 4 holes drilled on the left side. What's special about this plug, what definitely differentiates from a multi-lock, is the groove on the 5th position that's running all through the plug of the cylinder. So that groove is running all the way through, or all the way around it, I should say. On the bottom we see a ball bearing. This is normally used for anti-drill protection. So if a drill hits the ball bearing, it damages the drill. There are 5 springs in the CEI cylinder. 4 of them are nickel plated and 1 of them is not. We had 2 samples of this lock, and in both samples the number 5 pin was not nickel plated, so I guess it's made it's intentional. Then we have the pin-in-pin mechanism. There are 4 pin-in-pin outer pins in the lock, and there are 4 inner pins for the pin-in-pin mechanism. Special attention to the number 4 pin. It has a little bit different shape, and that shape is used for the so-called construction key mechanism. The number 5 pin is a angular shaped brass pin, and the top pin has a little knife edge on the bottom side of the pin. There are also 4 sliders, 4 snake pins in the lock, and these are operated by a sidebar, and the sidebar we see here on the left top of this picture. So if we look at the key of the CEI lock, we see that's a very decent, very interesting looking key that radiates that it's a high security key, and it is. There are 4 pin-in-pin holes in the key, dimples. We can clearly see that there's an outer dimple and an inner dimple. The number 5 is special. It's an angular cut slope that resembles a little bit, or that brings back memories to both Emhart and Medico. Then there is a little groove cut in the side of the key, and if we look carefully, there's actually 4 of them. 2 deep ones, one on the left, one on the right, and 2 shallow ones, one on the left, one on the right. And last but not least, there is a laser track or a snake or a groove, and these are for guiding the finger pins and bring them in the correct position. So these are the outer pins. with the two locks that I examined, the outer pins, there were 4 different heights, and the inner pins, there were 4 different heights. What's special about the outer pins is that they are not one shape, so they have a little bit of an edge sticking out. This will allow the pins to float and not interfere with the snake pins. I hope I can show that later. So here we have the plug, and I cut away a little bit so you can see the inside of it. Especially here, if you would look from the top, you would see that from the part where the arrow is at, the hole actually becomes a little bit smaller, a little bit narrower, and this will allow the pins to float. Since it is cut on the number 5 position, I will insert the pin number 5. So here we have the angular pin and its opponent, the top pin with the knife edge on it. And we can see here that the tip of the pin is smaller than the bottom of the pin. Here's an extra picture of that pin, so you can clearly see the angle and the groove in it. So here's the plug, and here's the pin, and if you see that the pin is now in, it will float, so it doesn't make contact with the bottom of the keyway, even though it's not exactly clear on this picture. We can also see that the top side, on the left up side, is a little bit turned, so at this moment the pin is not in the correct angle, it's not in the correct position for the lock to open. In this picture it is, so now the opening of the pin is in line with the groove on the plug. Here I assembled the plug and the housing, and you can see that the pin stack is not in the correct position. Here the key approaches the pin. Here the tip of the key lifts up the pin stack, pushes further a little bit, it's almost there, and then at the very last stage the groove in the pin, or the groove in the key, will actually force the pin stack to turn and line up the groove in the pin with the groove in the plug. Here you can see the cut in the key that needs to be there. If that cut wasn't there, then the lock couldn't turn all the way. So if we turn the key now, we see that the top pin, the part that's sticking out, that knife blade edge, is actually riding in the groove of that plug. And this is also a feature that will make it very difficult for you to disassemble the lock with a plug spinner or with techniques like that. So here you see what happens if you turn that cylinder, and you can also understand that if the key would not have the little groove cut out, then that part of the top pin would hit the key, the solid part, and it would block. So the cut in the key is made so that it can keep on rotating. So that's the angular cut part of this system. There's also 4 sliders in the lock, and the sliders, the little part sticking out on the left side of the slider, is actually the part that rides in the groove of the key. So here we have the key, and here we have the sliders as they are riding in the pattern of this groove. So the holes, the slides of the pins are now lined up. The sidebar can now fall into these openings. So here's another picture of the sidebar. Here the pins are in the plug, and as you can see they are scrambled, so they are not in the correct position. The one on the left is in the correct position, the one on the right is in the correct position, but the two in the middle are not slightly, or are not exactly in line. This is a picture where the 4 sliders are exactly in line. So this is the correct position. And now the sidebar can actually drop in to these pins and the lock will open. There's one more feature in this lock that is pretty nice. Here you see the number 4 pin with the incorrect key, and with the incorrect key the inner pin is lifted up a little bit higher, allowing the part to break off. So I will clarify that a little bit. So it's called the construction key pin. So the idea is that when you buy the cylinder, it's being installed by a professional installer. He or she has a key to install the lock, maybe even when you're not home. But they will leave you with a sealed container with 5 keys. And the moment that you use one of these 5 keys, the construction key, the key that was used by the guy installing the lock, will no longer work. So how does that feature work? It works by breaking off a little part of the inner pin. Here you see pin chamber 1, and pin chamber 1 I cut away a little bit of the top pin so you can actually see what's happening inside. And the little part, the little thing is sticking out, as you could see on the previous picture. And by now turning the key, actually that little part will break off. And once it's broken off, it will fall into the cavity that you see, the little hole. And I will show you with the next slide. So here the key is turned. Now the pin is already broken off. It's still, the broken off part is still in the top pin, in the pin-in-pin mechanism. And here the hole is almost under the part. Here you can see a drop in, and here the pin is actually gone. The little part of the pin is now gone, and it is resting in that little cavity. So if we turn the plug back, we see the broken off pin-in-pin. That's now just a flush shear line, so it's now where you want it to be. And on the bottom arrow you can see, hopefully, the little broken off part that's resting in that cavity, and that's not going anywhere in the lock. So that's just, secure there forever. So that was the CEI lock and the special features. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please contact us, or if you have any interesting locks, or if you have any questions on locks, feel free to contact us, and we hope to see you another time. Bye bye.